we have it available. So the recording started, and we're here for Earth Day, April 22nd to 2021. And we're excited to have Shannon Spurlock, an expert with water reuse, leading us in today's facilitated sort of pitch session and overview of the technologies. And what I'm going to do is turn it over to Shannon in a minute, but I just want you to know, if you haven't yet done so, if you could include your email and also your preferred number of your topic for breakout groups. Depending on the size of our group, we'll break out into 2 or 3 groups, and the choices are continuing the discussion on reuse, or working on innovation, or on technology marketing. And I also noted in the chat the link to the specific handout that Shannon prepared, which she'll share here. And then at the bottom of the hour, we'll go into these breakout groups. And at the top of the hour, we'd like to come back and share what we've learned, and also celebrate successes as we think about the progress being made in water. I just think many of you know, because you're members of the Global Water Works community, but we have shifted our goal to say we're going to solve the global water crisis in a generation. And that requires the brightest minds and the brightest technologies and smartest organizations coming together. But my colleague here, Frank Slavenik, also brings a tremendous knowledge with accelerating technology adoption, having been part of the founding team for Ingram Micro, which is a $40 billion technology distribution company. So Frank, before we turn it over to Shannon, was there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's good. It's interesting that today on Earth Day, there was a fairly extensive article. No, it's actually coming out of a Gallup poll that Americans feel that water pollution is more of an issue than climate change, which, I think that's maybe people are waking up to the challenges we have in water.
That's very interesting. And thank you for that. And Shannon, why don't you go ahead, dig into your topic, and you should have permission to share anything.
Okay. Let me go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. Great. Perfect. And is everyone able to view my screen?
Yes, I am. Very well.
Okay, excellent. I think there might be a better way to view it so you don't see it on the side.
If you hit the presentation, put the screen at the bottom of if you go to the bottom, you'll see a little like projector screen. Keep it moving to the right, a little bit more, 1 more, 2 more, 1 more. There, yeah. Click that.
Okay, does that show notes as well?
No.
No. But you're okay the way you are. I certainly can see your screen.
Okay. Well, let's just start here, and you'll know that I made notes to accompany each slide. There you go. So, yeah, thanks, Mary and Frank and the Global Waterworks community for being here. Happy Earth Day to everybody. And I'm excited that we get to have this conversation about water reuse and the global and the circular economy. And I wanted to start off really big picture and just kind of talk about concepts and how they fit together. And what does the circular economy have to do with Earth Day? Well, in the circular economy, there is no waste. The circular economy is imitating a natural process, a natural life cycle. It's not linear in its design and execution. In the circular economy, one of the key points is that all products and outcomes are designed with their end in mind, with their ultimate repurposing leading the design. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation posits a foundational question, which is how can our waste build capital rather than reduce it? And in this scenario, and we think about water recycling and water reuse, how do they fit in? And I want to establish kind of this Often when we talk about water recycling, people say, is this gray water? Is this desalinization? What are you talking about? So really, when we think about that, we're going to look to the Water Reuse Association's definition of water recycling, which is the intentional capturing of wastewater, stormwater, saltwater, or gray water, and cleaning it as needed for designated beneficial freshwater purpose, such as drinking, industrial processes, surface or groundwater replenishment, and watershed restoration. For many of you in the water field, you may have heard the term reclaimed water, and that in this context that is synonymous with recycled water. Really, to an extent, it's a little bit of a East Coast, West Coast thing, depends where you are in the country. Some of the things that when we think about recycled water and the benefits of recycled water, you hear the phrase a lot, fit for purpose. And what we're really talking about is the right water for the right use. When it comes to agriculture, for example, and we're thinking about water recycling, some of the benefits of irrigating with recycled water are that recycled water is a drought-resistant irrigation source. And for the recycled water serves the purpose of also relieving water supplies for municipal and industrial applications. And it fosters sustainable production of food crops in both urban and rural areas. Water recycling has different scales within its applications. And sometimes you hear about it in a very site-specific way, which is often referred to as decentralized reuse, or it might be at a larger scale way, and that's often centralized reuse. And really the difference between those two types of applications is going to be scale. When we think of centralized reuse, we think of large volumes of water being treated potentially in an urban center at a wastewater treatment plant, and then being redistributed out through their distribution system piping. With decentralized reuse, and we have some innovators talking about technology in both areas today. With decentralized reuse, we're looking at a smaller scale. We're looking at the treatment of a water source within a site or up to a site. So many of you have heard about, maybe in San Francisco, the amazing steps they're taking in on-site recycling and decentralized recycling. They're able to put systems in place to treat the water and reuse it multiple times within industrial complexes, office complexes. And then when we think of gray water as a way of reusing water, we can even scale it down a little further and think about within our own homes, how do we treat the water we're using and then reuse it again for other applications, aside from just having it for one use up front. So what's exciting about this on Earth Day and thinking about water reuse, the circular economy, how again we can imitate this natural life cycle, right, of things being cycled over and over again and used again, is what type of support does this take? And it takes a very intentional, coordinated approach. At the international level, we have the United Nations leading the way. They have sustainable development goals, and goal number 6 is dedicated to clean water and sanitation. There's, as one of the goals, the United Nations has also, March 2018, really declared this decade the decade of water, and looking at action that we can take to better manage our water. In 2017 too, the United Nations put out, if you like resources and white papers and research, you can look up their book. It's called Wastewater, the Untapped Resource, and it gives a global overview of the opportunities and role of recycled water in Africa, Asia, and nations throughout the world. In the United States, we've had some pretty amazing leadership. The Water Reuse Association has been around for a while and really kind of led a national charge in that area. But the United States EPA has taken on a significant leadership role in this area within the last few years. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the National Water Reuse Action Plan, it is well worth doing so. There are 45 defined actions in how we can scale and implement water reuse across the country that take into concern everything from water scarce climates like the West Coast, and talking about water restrictions in California going into effect May 1st, to looking at our Northeastern friends who are very water rich, and they might be thinking about discharge and nutrients very differently than we are here in the West. But the Water Reuse Action Plan really looks at contextually appropriate approaches to, again, scaling and expanding reuse. So I'm thankful for that national and international leadership, but we also have amazing leaders here on our call with us that are going to talk about how they are taking water reuse, how they are using technology to make a difference and take a resource and reduce the waste and cycle those resources again and again, and make the most of the finite resources that we have. And with that, I will hand it over to Fernando Ramirez, who is the America's Managing Director of Hydraloop. And Hydraloop supports the reuse of 45% or more of in-home water. So Fernando, I'll let you take it from here. And if you're able to share your screen, I will go ahead and stop sharing mine.
I will attempt that.
While Fernando is doing that, yesterday I gave a talk to the students at University of Wisconsin about efficient use of water in agriculture. And I just told them that Israel recycles about 60% of their water. Only 21% of their fresh water is used for agriculture. All the rest is recycled water, and the rest is desalination. So we have to start doing that more and more in this country. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble. Thank you. Raj.
Thank you, Raj. And I think it's really important to note that throughout the world, there are some amazing examples of people who are doing it well and incredibly successful. And Israel is a leader in this area. And I want to say, if it's still correct, I think Spain might be number 2. But I'll have to fact check myself on that, but we'll let Fernando take it from here.
Yep.
Yes, can you see my screen? Yes.
We see the email.
Yeah, Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hydraloop on Netflix.
Good.
As long as it's the email that you want us to see.
No, it should be the PowerPoint.
No, we're looking at the email.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Probably your other screen.
Hi, Chris.
Hello?
Yeah, and most everyone knows people here. I know we have Mark John, who joined us from Europe, and you may need to slip off, but thank you. And we'll do introductions right after these 2 presentations.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. Yeah, my screen's having a difficulty. So let me speak to the topic that Mary just mentioned. And I know, Mary, you had also sent out a couple of questions that you'd like us to address in our short discussion here.
Right. Why you were created, who you serve, and the impact that you're having, and how people can get started.
Right. In the spirit of Earth Day, I read a great quote by Ben Franklin, right, that spoke to me when he said, well, when the well's dry, we know the worth of water, right? And that is what keeps me up at night. There are significant challenges. And as we spoke in our last meeting, there's a heavy effort that all of us are responsible for in educating the rest of population outside our circle of water enthusiasts, including our youth, including our young people that we are encouraging to build passion into their careers. And I'm a big believer on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 6 is paramount to our efforts. I've talked to Raj privately too about some of our challenges in developing countries. So every drop has to count. Every drop must count. And that's why we're in this sector. That's why we're in this area, right? We have the passion. I go back to Raj's comments early on when we first met. We have to respect water. We have to respect water. That is a challenge for our global community, from youth to everyone else that has an impact of this. So why do we exist? So Hydraloop as a company developed a technology. Our founders were challenged and fundamentally were concerned by this exact issue. How do we conserve fresh water? Why are we using fresh water to flush toilets, to irrigate our gardens, when less than 2% of the global water source is fresh water for use? That does not make sense in any discussion. So they decided to take on that challenge, and they spent a significant amount of time researching the market, developing a solution that was really designed to be made available to every homeowner and every business. And think about that. The industry has not quite accepted the fact that decentralized water recycling can and is available at the homeowner level. It's a grassroots movement. We get phone calls from people very interested in California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, feeling the real pain of water shortage and water restrictions. And they are more upset with the fact that regulators have so many roadblocks in front of them before they can actually implement such technology. So the challenges we're helping clients overcome is protect a fundamental resource that's a basic necessity for humanity. And people are understanding that in a much broader capacity now in the US. And we accept the fact that water is cheap in the US today. So water is not infinite, right? I propose we think about February 2018, Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town, South Africa got near day zero. Its significant water restrictions, including the use of gray water recycling, averted a major disaster. So that's a well-documented case of a city, and we're in major cities in the US are heading the same direction. Your second question is, who is our ideal client, right? It's a homeowner. At this point, is a homeowner that has an initiative with sustainable and green initiatives. It's a grassroots movement. If we create demand, if we educate and get the market to push the agenda forward, the regulators will listen. The regulators are listening in Sacramento, right? I think it's State Bill 606 or 966 that's calling for regulating the use of every home in California by 2022. Think about the consequences of that. The government in California is going to tell us how much water we can use in our homes. That's a significant move, suggesting a crisis that the state of California finds itself in, and the rest of the West Coast. As far as impact that we can anticipate for users, we did some quick calculations just using EPA water sense numbers that are published on their website. A typical family uses 300 gallons of water per day in the US. Right? If we can impact that by 45% by reusing water that they can use a second time, use water twice. It also impacts the water that's going back through the sewer system, it reduces the water management component, which is a big issue to municipalities. Let's say, for example, that we can save 30,000 gallons of water per year, per home. Let's multiply that by 100,000 homes. The numbers add up quickly. The potential is there. The technology, the innovation is available. We just need to advance and promote the ability to implement this technology, make it affordable, probably get it incentivized at the local and state level or federal level for this to be widely accepted. And your last question is, how can we get people started using our solution? Call me.
Yeah. Look at those beautiful devices right over your left shoulder. I mean, that's wonderful visual of what you do.
Our small, elegant refrigerator size decentralized water recycling system.
And I don't understand why regulators have to spend time thinking about this when it is so obvious. I'm not talking about drinking water affecting people's health. You're talking about reusing it for toilet use and for washing our clothes and all that. So it is something which, unless there's public pressure, government doesn't act fast.
I submit the regulators need to be educated as well. They think they need to understand technology better. As you know, Raj, I came from the energy space,
Yeah.
so I've been through these battles before with the electric industry, and it's turning the Titanic around.
But we'll keep at it.
Absolutely.
Talking of the circular economy, I have a comment when appropriate.
Yes, I'm done, Mary. Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Fernando. And I did include the link to the website, and you're also in the technology showcase. And I should remark that you guys are CES award winners, so there's no filtration required, which makes it extremely easy for homeowners to use Hydraloop. So thank you, Fernando.
Thank you.
Raj, would you like to make your comment? And then from there, we'll go ahead and move over to Frank, and we'll use your comment to bridge the two.
Okay. The circular economy, we did a project in Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, where we took 38 million gallons of treated water from the wastewater treatment plant, which had very high level of nitrates and phosphates, which was creating algal bloom in Lake Michigan and the Grand Calumet where it was being discharged. So we surveyed farmers, we surveyed other users like public lands, cemeteries, golf courses, and we got agreements with enough of them to use this 38 million gallons for reuse. And then we said during winter, we need water storage reservoirs to hold this water before it can be reused. So we said, we got these two huge reservoirs of treated water. So what can we do with it? So we talked to farmers who would take the thing and said, what will you do with the extra corn that we grow? We said, we talked to an ethanol producer who said, I can put up an ethanol plant there using the extra corn that is not sold by these farmers to the market. And we will then, we put the ethanol in the market. Then we said, what do we do with the waste that the ethanol plant creates, the crushed mush? So we found a confined feedlot operator in that area who said, oh, my cows would love that. So we said, okay, he can take the waste from the ethanol plant, and then the waste from the confined feedlot operation and any other agricultural waste, we design biodigesters, which can digest all that and produce biogas, which can be used by the ethanol plant. So this was an economy where just using 2 reservoirs of treated water, we would create industries which would produce more energy, which would help us produce more food and produce the biogas, more energy. So this is the kind of circular economy that the Clean Water Act intended, according to Dr. Jack Schaefer, who helped write the Clean Water Act when he was to the Army Corps of Engineers. So but we have forgotten all that. We just got used to plenty of water and have been just misusing it. And we have to change our ways, like all of us. But we have to start at the school level, college level, and the government level and public level to get this momentum built up.
Yeah. Raj, thank you so much. And I will just use your, that's great food for thought, especially as we jump into our breakout sessions. But I will also say with the National Water Reuse Action Plan, I had mentioned there is integrated buy-in across the federal government for the plan. And the Army Corps of Engineers was a pivotal partner in helping that come to life. So it takes the village to really lift an idea and put it into action. And I would love to find out from Frank what about his innovative idea and how he is putting that into action and the differences he's seeing. Frank?
Thank you.
So you're talking to me, I assume, this Frank, right?
Yeah. Frank Brigano.
Yeah, there's multiple Franks, which is very unusual. I lived in the Midwest for a long time. I never met anybody named Frank. Lately, I've got a bunch of friends named Frank. So my name's Frank Brigano, and I'm representing Glanris. For me personally, when you think of Earth Day and our environment, my hero or heroine, I guess, is Rachel Carson, who wrote Silent Spring in the early 60s, who, when you think about it, in my opinion anyway, she set the stage for all that we're talking about today. In terms of the company I'm representing, Glanris, what they do is they are taking material, agricultural waste product, rice husks, and they're turning it into a material that's usable for water treatment, not only drinking water treatment, but wastewater treatment. And they're improving the environment in multiple ways, because by taking a waste product that typically is burned or allowed to decompose to produce CO2 and methane that literally destroys our atmosphere, they're taking that material and they're creating a char and sequestering the carbon. Then ultimately in the end use, no matter what the application, if it's landfilled, for example, that carbon then is going to be sequestered for thousands of years. So it's taken out of the environment and it's saving our atmosphere and helping to improve our atmosphere. From the
Is it
water,
the same as biochar, Frank?
it is a biochar. So they're in the world globally, there's about 220 billion pounds of rice husks produced a year. In the United States, the major rice producing state, believe it or not, this was news to me because I just learned it this year, is Arkansas. Glanris is located in a suburb of Memphis, Olive Branch, Mississippi, which is just across the river from Arkansas. And what we do is we take this rice husk and in modern equipment, we char it. And what's unique about the rice husk is it's multifunctional. It's a hybrid. It's a designer biochar. So not only does it have the ability to remove organics from water, take chlorine out of water, but it also has the ability to pull and attract and hold heavy metals from water, thus improving the water. It can be used for drinking water treatment, can be used on industrial wastewater where, I say it's a metal plating plant. Some of the field testing work that has been done shows that it's not affected by oils in the water, so it still functions. It just has a lot of great attributes that we're just scratching the surface at and finding out about. The company is a couple of years old. Last year, because of the pandemic, a lot of their efforts were stalled, of course. But now we're starting to move forward, starting to introduce the product. Within the last couple of months, we got our modern production equipment in place, and we're starting to launch and move the product forward. So for me personally, I find it very exciting because of the fact that it's environmental friendly. It's removing carbon from the atmosphere. It's improving the water environment. It's doing everything that I am passionate about, and that's why I'm happy to be associated with them. So I hope that answers your questions that you had for me, Mary.
Yeah.
Frank, have you read the book Burn by two authors? They wrote the book on biochar, and there's an international biochar initiative.
Yes, we're members of that.
Yeah, they get wonderful newsletters, and yeah.
Yep.
This is
So we're
wonderful work, but somehow it is hidden to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I find it, when you talk about the environment and the uses of biochar, I mean, they're just tremendous applications. And from an agricultural standpoint, I mean, our biochar we're looking to use for water treatment, but a lot of biochars, for example, once they sequester the carbon, they can be used in concrete, they can be used in asphalt, they can be used in animal feed, they can be tilled back into the soil. And really you want to put it deep in the soil because then you're sequestering the carbon for thousands of years. And once they're in the soil, they rebuild the soil, they help support microbial growth, they help regulate nutrients to the plant. they have lots and lots of values. And I'm one of the things that I'm hoping, which I haven't seen much from the new administration when they talk about wind and solar energy, but biochar's improvement to the environment, I think, can be even more substantial than or equivalent to those.
I would suggest a book called Burn, Using Fire to
I'm
Cool the
sorry?
Earth. There's a book called Burn, B-U-R-N,
Huh?
Using Fire to Cool the Earth.
Hmm.
This is a 300+ page book, which gives so many uses for biochar and all the different people that are using it. Albert Bates and Kathleen Draper. That was published 2 years ago. Amazing book. Number of uses they talk, and they talk of some communities in South America
Mm-hmm.
that have been using this for eons, for hundreds of years.
Yep.
And we have not opened our eyes to it because it's too dirty, you know, or so too simple, whatever it is.
Well, hopefully you'll see more of it.
Yes, that's good. I'm glad.
Well,
All the
let's-
best in your company.
Thank
Frank.
you.
Frank.
Well, let's see if we have any questions we would like to put to Frank or Fernando. Jean-Marc, I believe you had a question that you wanted to ask. So if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead.
And maybe introduce yourself too, if you would, Jean-Marc. It's nice to have you here.
Sure. I'm a partner at a firm called Ardor Capital. We were, I don't know if it's for sure, but possibly the first or one of the first boutique investment banking firms since 2002, totally focused on renewable energy and sustainability. So we've been, over the last 18 years, I joined in end of 04, but over the last 18 years, engaged in producing research on listed companies, trading those stocks, banking deals, so raising capital and doing M&A for public and private companies, and project finance, running conferences. We launched ETFs, et cetera. So I've kind of been a little bit around the block, so to speak, and unfortunately know where too many bodies are buried in all kinds of different technologies and business models. And we define that sector as energy production from renewables, distributed generation, environmental technologies, storage efficiencies, power electronics, and then a sort of resource plays. So one of my kind of general concepts, themes is besides my 6-year-old who's running around behind me, who's a big water fan, by the way. One of the concepts that I always like to look for is, I mean, I've got my background is engineering from UPenn and finance from Wharton, and so I've been in the capital markets since 1983. So whether it was doing projects with the UN and the World Bank at Citibank in Africa, or trading bonds and derivatives and advising large asset managers and development financial institutions and supranationals and hedge funds on asset allocation around the world, I've always had this sort of two sides of the brain of the business and the engineering, and trying to, and even in trading, my trading wasn't sort of directional with no cost of money. It was always a cost of capital. Therefore, I was always looking at things from an arbitrage standpoint. And so when I got involved in this space years ago, I've always kind of looked at it from that sort of arbitrage standpoint, and especially where you've got lots of different systems and technologies that intertwine. And I think, so fast forward to today, in terms of creating climate wealth and getting to scale with a finite time limit, I think that whereas we need to try to invest in new technologies, game changers, et cetera, which is, you know, kind of the job of these national research institutes and maybe some super billionaires that want to throw some money at this stuff. I think we generally have a lot of the technologies we need. We just need innovative business models to scale them, to solve these problems. And those business models need to take into account all kinds of constituents that either are getting a free ride or are paying too much. And if we can do that in a way that unlocks value in creatively, then I think, and water is a perfect place to start with that. because it's so totally linked and embedded in so many different areas. So that's my general approach. So having said that, with respect to Fernando and even Raj, for Fernando, my question, it was an interesting presentation. I even already texted you to learn more and tried to connect on LinkedIn. I'd like to understand, like, what's your model to bring this to scale, and have you thought of any other sort of a little bit out of the box, not technologies, but out of the box business models and partnerships that can help to scale this and while making money at the same time, because you need to, otherwise your business isn't sustainable. And on the second question, just real quickly for Raj is, oh no, it wasn't Raj. It was I'm sorry. It was Frank. Yeah, Frank. You know, regarding the rice hulls and rice husks, I've seen in the past when you have a choice between food for energy or food for nutrition always wins out. So I'm wondering, I thought I had read that there is quite a bit of nutritional value in rice hulls and rice husks. And so I'm wondering if that's a risk for using those for something other than nutrition, or maybe there's something embedded where you can do both. Anyway, that's kind of my comments.
Yeah, let me take a pass at your first question. So yeah, our go-to-market is going to really develop a robust network of distribution. So we're going to avoid the direct sales model. We're going to work through partners, channel partners. An example of one of the strategic approaches that we're taking is we took a look at the home builder market, right? Home builders, new homes are our ideal target because we need those homes to be built what we call recycle ready, meaning the piping system needs to be ready. You need to be able to separate those, be ready. And the best time to do it is when you're building a home or you're retrofitting a kitchen or a bathroom. So if you look at the housing industry, very interesting how the price of lumber keeps going up. There's a housing shortage. It's not affordable in some parts of the country. So there's a significant movement from prefabricated and modular home builders that have significant plans to disrupt that market over the next 5 years. So we are in conversations with many of those players because we want our technology to be included in these homes that are going to be built in 30 factories all across the United States to really put out volume number of homes into the marketplace. So we want to be part of that movement. These are homes that are being built with what's being called smart homes, innovative technology. So think solar power, water, anything that will make that more attractive and sustainable is part of the agenda. Those are the groups we want to be involved with. Architects reach out to us frequently as they build a smart home in the next generation of home that will have an impact not only on the homeowner, but it's socially responsible. And that's the sustainable movement that we want to be part of that. So that home market that's emerging, and it's in play already. There's significant capital being raised for that aspect, that disruptive technology. That's one of the models we're going to follow aggressively and have our technology included in all of those homes.
I guess I don't know, that for me, that sounds like a traditional business model, right? You have a distributor, you include that in that home, you get paid for delivering that. You have and somebody, the homeowner, I guess, is going to pay for that through some increase in perceived value, whether they understand what that value is or not. We don't have a price. I mean, when I lived in France for 10 years or 12 years in my apartment in Paris in the 90s, I got a water bill every month, right? I'm paying for water. I don't get that in New York. So until we put a price on it, a lot of people just take it for granted. And so I guess there's a combination of regulatory to actually put a price on it, somewhat like people talk about carbon. But I think it's possibly easier with water in the sense that it's so tangible for people to understand the value of clean water, right? As opposed to, this thing about, parts per million of carbon CO2 up in the atmosphere, and then trying to link all that back and using that as a metric for the average person to get, like not having clean water. Talk to people in Flint, Michigan, they get it, right? And, it just seems to me there's maybe, and I don't know what the solution is. I haven't spent enough time on it, but I think that because water touches everything from building materials, so for our shelter, from food to grow, from energy. You need as much water to produce the amount of energy to get that water into the cup of water you're drinking. I mean, all of these things most people don't realize. I mean, obviously everybody on this call does, but I'm just saying that there's, I guess, a combination of communication of the value of the water, and then a business model that somehow it's great what you're doing, and I'm sure it'll be successful. I'm just saying, I bet there are constituents within that value chain of getting that into those houses that are getting a free ride. And I'm just wondering how we can get more creative to put in, whether it's like health insurance companies that say anybody who's got one of these water systems in their house, you should get a deduction on your insurance bill, because over time you're going to have a better impact on overall water for the entire country, and clean water for the entire country means healthier people, or whatever. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking that there's, insurance companies and the reinsurers, they're all freaking out. Like they don't, they're the ones that are looking the longest term. I mean, we should hire some of these guys to be in the administration, because they're kind of like the Chinese. They're thinking 50 years out, because that's their liability is probably on average, 30 to 50 years. It's not a couple of years. So anyway, that's just my sort of color or comment that I was looking for, to see if anyone, or if you, or you've thought about it, or in that sense.
Well, I think one of the items that is really going to accelerate adoption is getting the state, federal level to incentivize some of these solutions, right? Very similar to what we saw with solar panels 20 years ago, right? Solar panels, we have examples. We had
Down 95%, the total cost of installation. I get it. Yeah.
California had blackouts and brownouts. That's when solar panels became
right. But it wasn't the solar didn't start taking off because we all of a sudden had like unbelievable breakthroughs in technology. Solar started taking off because we had an interesting breakthrough in a business model. Some people will argue with it. It may or may not be true, but if you just say you look at a solar production of electricity from solar as kind of like a bond, where you've got your upfront cost, and then you got your coupons for 20 years or some, now it's like 35 years or whatever. And oh, by the way, the input cost, it's even better with solar because it's free, access to the sun or whatnot. And so the whole issue was, well, we got all this upfront cost. Well, if you have a big fund, and then you do the leasing model to get free, no money down solar, quote unquote, on your house or on your building or whatever. Like that's what started to accelerate the reduction on the acceleration of the cost curve coming down steeper. In addition to tax equity in the US, which I thought was a stupid mistake. We should have followed the feed-in tariffs of Europe. It was much simpler and easier and less volatile, but nonetheless, as Churchill says, the Americans always come up with the right answer after exhausting all other possible solutions. So, but that's what I'm talking about, is great technologies like yourselves, right? We just did a deal in hydrogen in the fall, and I'll stop talking. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't mean to be rude. I just know we have a couple things to move on to, but I also want to give Frank the option to answer this second.
Feel free to cut me off anytime. I'm Irish, so why use one word when 10 will do, right?
No, that's great. Go ahead, Frank, if you want to take the second part of Tom.
Okay, well, I didn't know the nutritional value of rice husks, so I just looked it up. And it says that it has low nutritional value, it's hard to eat or swallow, and it's not digestible by humans. My experience with it from the research I've done is that rice husks are a waste product, and they're typically burned or disposed of in the field. So taking a waste product and making it to something that's usable is a definite plus. If there's other information on it, I'm not aware, because I really, it's not something I've researched.
The difference between white rice and brown rice, the rice husk, or no?
I honestly don't know. We're getting rice husks from, I think I said this, I'm not sure. 50% of the rice in the United States is grown in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So we're getting the rice right now, right from Arkansas. And as far as I know, it's white rice. It's actually, we're using parboiled rice husks. So it's been boiled and cleaned. So I'm not aware of any other value of I'm not aware of the other husks.
Okay.
Well, we're about to go into breakout rooms, and prior to that, though, I want to check in. If you're listening, you have a comment, and there's something you kind of want to contribute towards the idea of reuse in the circular economy, or a takeoff on either Frank or Fernando's comments, or Raj or Jean-Marc's comments, now is a great time to do that. If there's a question or a thought, we want to.
Maria had a comment in the text. Maybe Maria, you could speak to what the utilities and the builders you're seeing.
Certainly. Hey, this is Maria Price. I'm the stormwater manager in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we are a very, very developer-friendly area. Tennessee is still part of the good old boy network. And we find that we get a lot of resistance from the developers when, even when we're suggesting best practices. If it's not mandated, if it's going to cost them a little bit more money, they don't want anything to do with it. All they want to do is come in, build what they have to build, sell it, and then they're done. So I think until we do get some legislation in place that requires some of these, and incentivizing is another great option, until we hit their billfold, until we actually monetize this, they're not going to give us the results that we hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't mean to be negative. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, we have to work through the legal framework.
Yes.
Don't you think with education that if the population were educated, so if people knew about Hydraloop, that a home could be built that would reuse 40% of the water, and understand through education the value of that, then, because ultimately the market has to take over. Maybe regulation starts, but sooner or later the market forces have to take over.
I think it's Frank.
Slow
Just to
process.
add, just a quick comment. I think that for all of us, that sounds logical and reasonable because we're hand raisers. We're people that make the difference and be the change.
Yes.
I think for the other 95%, I don't mean to sound like a cynic, but it's economics. 99.8%. Sorry, I saw Jean-Marc beat me up. Yeah, I really think it's economics. I have this argument with my father-in-law who lives in Las Vegas and got rid of his grass. He's like, listen, if water is $50 or $80 a month, that makes no difference to me. If it's $300 a month, I change everything.
Exactly.
So I think that whether it be regulatory or whether it be economic pressures, I think that the value of water is measured by dollars per 1,000 gallons or dollars per cubic meters or whatever. So I think that although I share your idealism, I want to know how much it is to see if I can put it. But that's me.
But it's true. I mean, the economics, and certainly we had this discussion at WebTech a year and a half ago that, and we were talking around a table with about a dozen people at dinner, and it came down to that if the consumer is not impacted, they will not conserve. So, you just think about, brushing your teeth at night and leaving the water running. I mean, so maybe it is more so, and whether you consider it regulatory or just utilities need to raise prices.
Yeah, I just want to add another quick comment. I do think that education is part of that. I don't want to neglect the education because my kids turn off the water when they brush their teeth, right? And my guess is their kids and probably a couple of their friends when they do a sleepover turn the faucet off too. That's part of mom and dad's education in our family.
Right.
But I think that's part of it because I don't want to neglect that but I think that's cultural change. And so I think the easiest currency is dollars, but that's the kind of cultural currency that we're trying to create in with the value of water too. So, and I'm on private well, by the way, for the record, so my water cost is pretty low, but I do think that education plays a big role in that. So I just think it's kind of hedging that, like, to get people to make a decision a little bit quicker. It's like hybrid cars, right? The economies didn't work on those, but thank goodness enough people were well enough educated and didn't like fossil fuels enough where we all started buying hybrid, or a handful of us started buying hybrid. So I would imagine this, reuse would be a similar thing. So unless there's a giant crisis, or something huge that changes, and that might happen in water, like places like California when they change the legislation too.
It's happening.
Well, but when you're dealing with gasoline at $4.50 a gallon, hybrids make a lot of sense.
Yep, they do.
At whatever, $1 a gallon, hybrids don't make a lot of sense, right? So it ultimately becomes an economic decision.
Yeah.
And the thing about water, though, it's kind of like saying to somebody, I'm going to charge you for breathing, right? And and if you charge for it, it'll be perceived politically everywhere, at least in this country, in my opinion, as a regressive tax. And so I think that's why I'm really focused on business model innovation, where you can embed the cost in value within value, the value chain across certain other participants. And I also think it's a question of carrot or stick, right? Do you get people to conserve because otherwise they're going to be charged more, or do you get them to conserve because maybe they have a way to make some money off doing that? And so that again goes back to business model innovation. How do you figure how do you come up with a capital reallocation model in the economy where there will be payments embedded to people for saving water? And I guarantee you, low income people, if they have a way to earn an extra $50 a month because they're saving water, or 100 or whatever it is, they're probably going to do it. If they're going to be told you're going to be charged a lot, I think you'll have especially now in the current, in the middle of this pandemic, and even the next couple of years, that'll probably be difficult. But
you listen to people like Fernando talk, and it's such a no-brainer. I mean, it's a no-brainer to reuse your water.
In this pandemic, the water issue has been highlighted as well, right? We need to wash our hands more frequently.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that it's clear to all of us on this call, at least, that in other parts of the world, water is a lot more cared for, more appreciated, more respected. So cheap prices are driving to a challenging thought process by our society, and changing that is part of our challenge.
Well, some of the like, if you start thinking out of the box again, is there's X amount of water, and so do you do reuse, do you save, or do you just have new technologies that can achieve the same goal as the previous process that just doesn't use water at all? Like, brushing your teeth without water, period, not running it at all, because you've got a new kind of toothpaste that you can brush your teeth and just swallow it, and maybe you don't need any water or whatever, I don't know. But in any case, even to your point, with your technology, it's again, it's how do you get it deployed quickly across a lot of homes, not just those that can afford it. And if you have a sort of a modified, solar leasing model applied to your technology that has an upfront cost to install it, paid for by large institutional investors who are happy with getting a 5% or a 4 or 5% return over 20 years because they financed this water reuse technology across millions of homes, not 30,000 homes, then maybe there's a way to address that.
Do you have a business model, Mark? Can you suggest a model business model that can be adopted by companies who want to save water, reuse water?
No.
Okay.
Is the
Why don't
short
you
answer.
suggest that?
I'm
Because
just-
that is what is
just-
required by
Well,
Congress, by states
No,
to
but that's my
really
point.
change.
That's my
Yeah.
point is that the business models will have to incorporate
Yeah.
all the, like many constituents involved and those that are not yet involved. And that, that requires a lot of time focused on that with those various constituents. And, that's more than a full-time job. So I'm not my business is not developing all those business models, innovation. My business is investing in them and supporting them because of what they've developed, which can help scale these technologies. I can participate, but I don't have a golden, I don't have the silver bullet, so to speak, in my hand. I'm just saying that logically speaking, there's,
Understand,
yeah.
Actually, with that, we're having some great conversations and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I know we need to bring this to a wrap. And I see, I just want to touch base with Rich and Tom or Thomas. If either of you have comments or questions, and make sure we get to hear your voices or anything you'd like to share before Mary gives us an Earth Day toast.
Sure, this is Tom. I'll go first. So very interesting dialogue here today. Thanks for including me. So I work for so I'm going to call John Mark and ask for some money because I need money to keep going. But we use artificial intelligence to help pulp and paper mills manufacture their product. And a lot of the really large pulp and paper mills, well, almost all of them have industrial wastewater that they have to treat. So we're already collecting pretty good data from a lot of these pulp and paper plants and in their industrial wastewater treatment plants by putting in some of the newer technology into the treatment basins. We're able to use AI where our product is hosted in the cloud, and we're able to model things to provide them predictive analytics to proactively treat wastewater in a way that then will allow them to reuse. So paper manufacturing is very water intensive, and these big companies all have very ambitious sustainability goals. Very few of them here in the U.S. are doing a high amount of reuse today. We think we can help them with that. Typically, those goals come from the C-suite, and buying offsets and that type of thing is you sort of hit a ceiling. So this will help them with their sustainability goals as they're able to treat water in a way that allows a portion of their effluent to come back right to the front of the plant and be reused. So that's the business we're in. We're pretty excited about it.
Sounds great. And just anyone who has technology, Frank is running our technology showcase. So if it's got a case study behind it, we want to know about that. And that's Frank Slavenic with showcase behind his name. And we're going to.
Yes.
But Rich, you're there. Nice to see you. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm part of a real small startup company called Summit 360 Research, and we're putting together a product that we call the Water Router, and it's sort of a very entry-level version of using water from a sink in a bathroom, for example, and using it to flush a toilet, so that you're not using fresh water for like toilet flushing. Why would you flush it down the drain? And so we've only just there's a patent and stuff on the product, but we've only just started formalizing as a company, putting together the website, starting to reach out to people. So this is very new, and that's why I hadn't spoken up too much, because I'm just trying to absorb and learn and start to get a better feel for what's going on. So thanks for having me again.
Great to have you. And Shannon, great job for you. I just love what has happened with the reuse efforts globally. And Frank, yeah, you wanted to show how we all mobilize. Frank's the guy we want to follow. So, oh my goodness, look at this. You guys all get a square. It's like dominoes.
So this is the Water Tech Showcase, which has about 103 companies in it. and it's continuing to grow.
There's Waterly down at the bottom.
Waterly.
Not
Waterly was the company that put us over 100.
our claim to fame, Chris.
There you go. Anyway, in here, so it's a searchable database. Companies are in here. There's a company profile, product profile, and they're categorized by application, so that you can go into the showcase in the community and search. Somebody's looking for a solution, put in what they're looking for, and the companies that have the application to solve that problem will show up in the database.
Very cool. And you
How do we get access to that?
How do you get access to the database?
You put a
Go on the
quarter.
community-
You
Yeah.
put a quarter
Put
in
a quarter, yeah, right. The side of your computer. No, go into the Global Waterworks community and click on WaterTech Showcase.
I'll
Yep.
put a cup of water instead of a quarter in. How about that?
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Well, that's a good reason to bring up our toast. So to all of you water peeps who make water work, I just like to do a quick toast, but let's do a flash. Everyone think just one line of what makes them excited and hopeful about water being the driver to our future Earth Day celebrations. And I'll just say, all of you, cheers to all of you. Frank Slavenic.
The passion that we see every day with people in the community at Global Waterworks. That's what's going to make Global Water work.
Frank Brigano.
Essential for life. Can't live without it. Essential for life.
Amen. Yeah. Shannon.
I was going to say the necessity of water that makes us have to work together. I'm thankful for the need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have to, and you make it fun. Thank you. Fernando.
Educating our next generation that's going to make a lot of change possible way beyond our lifetime.
That's true. I'm with you.
And we need it. And Maria.
Hey, sorry, my kids were running in. Was there a specific question we were going around answering or just comments?
Oh, the question is, what makes you hopeful that we can resolve the global water challenges in this generation?
Well, I think a lot of it is education. I mean, the kids nowadays they're taught to recycle. They're taught the importance of things. And we've got more elementary, listen, Chattanooga, we have a lot of elementary programs that involve the kids getting in the creek. I mean, they're looking at the benthics. They're seeing the differences of what's happening with our water and the implications that the E. coli and the TSS and sedimentation are having on our ecosystem. And I think they're getting a very immersed exposure to this, which we didn't have. I mean, recycling wasn't really a big thing. I know when I was in high school, I helped start a recycling program because nobody had one. But now it's just a completely different world. So I have a lot of hope that the new generation will have already accepted this as the norm and not something new and we fear change.
Especially if you're
When I was in high school, I'm old enough that when I was in high school, we didn't have anything to recycle. All you children on the line here.
Stay true. Back with Fred Flintstone, right off the earth. Yeah, Chris.
You know, I was thinking, and what actually motivates me is going to sound maybe a little counterintuitive, but what motivates me is the challenge. You know, Waterly serves public water and wastewater system operators, like the people that make this all happen, put the water into the pipes. And I'm excited at the opportunity because I think that bridging that generational gap has got to start with bridging the people that are running these systems today and helping them to understand why their grandchildren feel differently than they do, and finding a way to make it good and fun for them. And I like Jean-Marc's challenge to find innovative business models that really change things. For the record, Waterly charges for our software by the gallon. So that's our contribution to that. So the lower water you use, the less you pay for our software. So I'm into that and I live that. And so that challenge excites me.
Cool. Rich.
Yeah, it goes back to education, but also I think one of the things that drives me the most is that the idea of finding that everyday way to work this into your lifestyle. So for little kids that are just doing these things, as they're brought up, it doesn't even have to be something they think about. That will be what helps change, things in the future. This is just what they do, right? So.
Exactly, like Frank Slavenic was modeling there. We'll get his comments in a moment. And Tom, did I ask you?
Oh, no, yeah. So digital wastewater treatment for reuse. I don't know if you can see my back wall here, but I'm also an avid fisherman. I think we should all try and leave this planet in good shape for future generations so that they can enjoy something I'm passionate about. I used to fish a lot more before I got involved with startups, that's for sure.
Are you a dry fly or a wet fly fisherman?
Well, I do a little bit of both, do a little bit of everything. I mean, did the 2 week-long tours in Alaska that were dry and wet fly, and
Nice.
I've done sport fishing. I've done it all. I got fish hanging off my walls. It's been a true passion of mine throughout my
I
life.
tied my first fly at 5 years old with my dad, and I caught a bass off of it, and I haven't stopped since.
Nice.
Cool. And John Mark, you sounds like that might be what inspires you too.
Well, I was going to say, for me, water. I was going to say water is life, but I'll say water is beauty. And whether it's seeing that fish rise in the morning mist on a river to a fly and you're kind of one with the river and the nature, or scuba diving in certain parts of the world that are just so beautiful, and then linking it to what everybody's been saying. My son, who you saw, was very interested in what we were talking about, and with respect to him, he'll yell at me if I forget to turn the water off when I'm brushing my teeth, or the analogy I make is, when you're like 4, 5, 6, or 7, and you move to another country and you learn a new language, it's very, very easy. You can learn a language in like 3 or 6 months. I did. I learned French and whatever in several months because I was immersed. And so I think that our youth that are being educated both from family and in schools at the kind of pre-K, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, they're learning the language of water respect, and just general environmental respect at that age. And it's imbibed within them, just like they learn a language if they go to another country. So that's my analogy between, as far as the educational aspect. So
I'll give it back to Shannon for a last word. Thanks, John Mark. That's great.
I guess thank you everyone for spending your Earth Day with us. And I'm always inspired by learning from others and how they see the vision of the future and the way we all can make a collective difference. So I'm happy to be on that journey with all of you. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you for facilitating, Shannon. Great job.
Yeah, if you guys could all grin, we'd take a little picture and put it in the album. Thanks. Tom, can you look up? Thanks.
Sorry.
We want to see you here too. Great. Okay. So if you had anything, you can note it. We'll do a recap in the community where you can grab the recording and Shannon's piece. But our next day is May 6th, and we're going to focus on smart water prior to the SWAN conference. And then May 20th, we'll focus on water quality, piece that came up here, as Frank said. And before we sign off, can you tell us what that little barrel was, Frank, that you're doing, and so we can all be inspired by your personal action?
Oh, capturing the rainwater off the roof of my barn.
And you can all go down there and meet the donkey and the goats and see, as Frank went right back to the Fred Flintstone days, he's not using anything but of the earth.
That garbage can and that thing where it was yours, Frank?
Yes.
That's awesome. I love the practice.
And I live on a lake, so our water's pretty cheap. So
good on you.
Lake
That's
Hartwell.
okay. That still looks fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It is.
You guys will continue in the community. You're all critical to the community. Water only works if we all work together. So know you can own a discussion group. You can create a conversation, a poll. Let us know if you'd like to do something extra, and John Mark, I'll send you business models and we hope that the community, you will make your own, because Frank and I are simply shepherds in it right now.
Yeah, take a look in the community. This week's poll is on reuse. So take a look and answer the poll.
Yes, so thank you all. We celebrate your innovation and are just delighted to have your participation here.
Yeah,
Bye-bye,
hang out.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Great seeing everybody.
Thank you. Happy Earth Day.
Yeah, thank you.